Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome. You're tuned to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on CNBC News, NBC News, and NBC Sports radio station KCAA, home to the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Tiki Live, Amazon Music, JioSaavn, Rumble, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness, balancing out all the bad news out there that's so readily available so that you can have a happy life 88% of the time. Not 100% of the time, otherwise you're dead. But 88 is a pretty good majority number. 8's my lucky number in Chinese. It's a homophone for good fortune, and it is your birthright to be happy 88% of the time. So I have topics and guests to that end so that you can learn about a variety of topics. We had someone on talking about, I had cancer research doctors talking about great progress with diet and shrinking the cancer cells. I've had entertaining shows like the Waltons on my YouTube channel. If you free subscribe, you get interviews backstage with the Temptations or Halle Berry on the red carpet. So it's just a variety of stuff that you have access to. Please do free subscribe there. Also, we're streaming live this morning on LinkedIn, Facebook, and my Home Central YouTube. So please do. I see eyeballs rolling in. We already got a finger. That's not that finger. We got this finger. So we'll absolutely love to have you join us. And you'll see I have a very special guest in studio today. And thanks to the Lee, the stacking of the emails, you were kind enough to send me your bio, and it is not coming up right now, but I am going to just one more time try this. And let's see, it is not coming up. But so I'm going to do this. Actually, I love introducing people this way. So you ready?
Ready.
I don't have an answering machine. I have a questioning machine. And when you call me, it says, who are you and what do you want? So Lee, who are you and what do you want?
Wow, good questions. Well, first of all, so happy to be here with you. To answer the question of who I am, I kind of want to, the inclination is to answer that based on what I do for work, right? But really the question I would say is who I am is someone who's really committed to learning to be present. I'm committed to learning to be present. I'm committed to also being of service to others, to service to myself. What I do for work, right, is I'm consultant, speaker, executive director of the Kollner Academy. And what I really want right now today is just to have fun.
Awesome. I found it. Lee is a business leader, consultant, and speaker committed to raising consciousness within business and individuals. His work combines business strategy with personal development training to help leaders evolve themselves, and their organizations. He is a sought-after keynote speaker. He facilitates meditation and transformational experiences for individuals and corporations. And he currently sits as the executive director of the Kollner Academy at the Kollner Group, a boutique consulting firm in Los Angeles. As you can see, he's humble as well. He's done various things. Please welcome Lee into my studio. And
Thank
I
you.
just love that you are into transformational leadership. That is one of my favorite topics. Y'all know that I am a business psychologist by education as an organizational psychologist. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today because I don't usually get to talk about that with a variety of topics. So I'm excited about that. But before we get going, y'all know the drill. We start with breakfast with my guest. So taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. I like you to start every day. So every show, weekday mornings at 8 with gratitude. That's the top of the bun. The late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer says 5 things in the morning. I'm a little bit of a recovering overachiever, so I do say 8. You know why 8's my favorite numbers. I already said that. So we're going to go back and forth and just do a tag team. But I challenge those who are streaming now that I do see your eyeballs, so I know you're there. If you would go to your comments and just put what you're grateful for, I'll flash it on the screen. And that way, Lee and I don't have to do as many. But I'll start off. I am grateful that I found earrings on Mother's Day that goes perfectly with this outfit.
They do.
What are you grateful for, Lee?
Great. The first thing that comes to mind I'm grateful for right now are my friendships. My friendships, my community. Just have some amazing friends that I'm very grateful for.
Great. I'm grateful that our mutual dear friend, Mary Richardson, who has her own coaching practice with her husband. She is the founder, her and her husband are the founder of Codependence Anonymous, which is a 12-step group for people who are codependent. And just shortly, if you are a person who says sorry a lot and are only happy when other people are happy and you don't really understand or are in touch with how you are internally happy, you might be codependent. And I'm a recovering codependent. So I will say as a person, that is one of the things that I've learned from Mary, who is just such a dear person. I've known her probably the longest of people in my life. I think I'm ageless, but we've known each other for 27 years, I think.
Wow.
So we met when we were teenagers. So I'm going to say that I'm grateful for Mary.
That's great, Marissa. I'm going to have to echo you on that one. My second one is that I'm grateful for Mary, too.
Beat you to it.
Yeah, you did beat me to it. But yeah, Mary's like one of my favorite people on earth. And
absolutely.
I'm just so grateful for her.
Yeah. I am grateful that the planets didn't crash into each other last night when I was asleep.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I am grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my well-being.
Beautiful. I'm grateful for hitting the gym this morning in the pool. Even though I didn't feel like it, I just applied the gospel according to Nike, just do it. And I did. And I'm grateful for that.
Oh, that's great. I'm grateful to live on the beach, that I get to actually use the beach every day.
I'm grateful that I live at the beach.
Hey.
Sorry, I have to show off.
Love it. Wow.
I just moved down to floor 8, of course, and I can now see that Wyland building with the whales.
Oh,
so
cool.
That's why I flash.
I love it.
I am grateful that I love life. I'm grateful that there's just so much to see, so much to do, so much to experience, so much to listen to, so much to feel, so much to touch. And that's about 10 gratitudes right there. All right. One more gratitude from you, Lee.
All right. Love it. I'm really just grateful for the work I get to do in the world, and just that I love it and that it lights me up and I get to be here with you and do things like this. It just, it's totally joyful.
Yay. All right. Now we go to the bottom of the bun. Now, the bottom of the bun, that was the top of the bun. Bottom of the bun is gratitude inside. That was gratitude outside. What do you like about yourself? And this is a practice. It's a discipline that I want y'all to work your muscles on, because we have a tendency to look for love in all the wrong places. Every day is who likes me, literally, how many likes am I getting? Who approves of me? And that leads us to not a very present, stable, balanced life. You're swinging on depending on who criticizes you or who compliments you. And I want everybody, I believe that the hallmark of mental health is self-approval, self-love, self-care, and that we would have world peace if everyone had that fundamental okayness about themselves. And when you have an okayness about yourself, then you're less worried or interested or care about what other people think of you. If you're good with 88% of yourself, that's my formula. So that's why we do this. I appreciate that I know the secret to happiness in my life, and that is to choose it, unconditional happiness.
Beautiful.
What do you appreciate?
Yeah, I appreciate that I'm willing to look at whatever comes up within me, even if it's tough, challenging, that I've gotten in the habit of not pushing negative thoughts, feelings, or perceivably negative thoughts or feelings away.
Cool. I appreciate that. I love to be a jokester, witty, love making people laugh. My favorite sound on the planet.
Of that. I appreciate my ability to create humor with people.
I appreciate that I am a fashionista. Love expressing creativity through my dress.
Beautiful. I appreciate that I'm really learning to trust my intuition on a much deeper level, and that my intuition has become very clear to me.
Great. I appreciate that I can forgive myself for the 12% of the time that I step into stuff. Yesterday, I actually did something that I don't like to do, which is apologize. And I felt better afterwards. I fought it for like the whole trip to the bathroom and back, but then I did it and I felt better.
Awesome. Love it.
Last one.
I appreciate my my ability to step into compassion pretty quickly for myself and others when there's pain that comes up.
Beautiful. And that is it. Thanks for having breakfast with us. That is the gratitude sandwich for today. And I promise you, if you do this for 28 consecutive days, your days will be sandwiched in so much goodness that you just will not believe what just happened. So, and there's no calories in this sandwich. All right, let's go to it. Talking about, okay, so I'm going to set the stage. The field that Lee and I are in is a relatively new field in terms of it's not as old as accounting or physics or finance or even marketing in business. When we talk about business leaders, the old BS belief system is leaders are born, not made. You can't really train them. They're the ones that hold the whip, hold the stick. You are going to do what I tell you to do, or don't let the door hit you on your backside. You are told what to do by a good leader, and they're at the top of the organization. And to be a leader, you just have to suffer through the abuse that you get climbing up or in that rat race and dog eat dog until you're at the top. And then you get to whip out and do all the things that were done unto you when you're at the top of the leadership hill. Now, that's the old paradigm around leadership. And it unfortunately really lasted for 50 years in the organization, if not more, until in the 60s. I believe it was around the 60s, late 60s, that we began to look at, wait a minute, is that really the best way to lead? And so my whole field of organization development, organization effectiveness, organizational psychology was born. And I'm grateful that I'm one of the 5 first graduates in this particular field, without giving away my age, that got to explore and grow and watch this field just blossom into what it is right now. So that's sort of giving you, is that about an accurate sort of a scenario?
Yeah, I think that's good, great context for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you, I got to teach at UCLA in the MBA school, and that was what I taught. So org development, org effectiveness, conflict management, communication, managerial, interpersonal effectiveness.
All the important stuff.
Yeah, all the important stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me
Yeah.
how you got into this field and why this is so important to you.
Yeah. It's a great question. So actually, I'll kind of start a little bit earlier than when I got into the business world. So I guess when I was a kid, I actually was really interested in personal development. And that was not really because it was an intellectual pursuit, but because when I was very young, I experienced a lot of early in life, energetic pain, physical pain, emotional pain. And like really had that feeling like, how do I actually get out of this? You know? And so that led me down.
Can I be curious and ask specifically the kind, like examples of that pain? Are you comfortable talking about it?
Of course. So I just had so much anxiety in my body and so much fear that I was afraid that, you know, I would walk down the street and just pass over and die. I was worried that there were, you know, things that would happen to me, that I would just have some kind of inexplicable illness or something like that. I don't know where that even came from, but I just had all this pain. And then energetically, I noticed that, you know, even sitting in school, I would have sensitivity to lights. I would find myself being dizzy a lot. Like there were things that were really hard for me to even explain in terms of my physical wellness. And so, you know, here I am trying to be a kid in high school, you know, trying to be a little bit cool. And I'm sitting with like sunglasses in class because I can't handle the lights. And, you know, there's just all these type, and that kind of deepened my own shame. And so there was kind of just all these different things that were very, very painful for me and in life. And I didn't really know where it was coming from.
So this is like a deep-seated anxiety and fear that wasn't necessarily externally placed on you, but you just had that internal feeling.
Yeah.
Did it run in your family, or did anything traumatic happen?
Yeah. So as I've looked into this, you know, for many, many years, I think that there was some lineage stuff that had come in from kind of one side of my family. But at the same time, I also had kind of a birth trauma when I was born. So when I was born, my intestines weren't connected. So I had to go into an operation, and I was in an incubator for the first 3 weeks of my life. When I became an adult, the energetics of that experience, I believe, stayed with me, even though the mental cognition wasn't there to remember exactly what happened and to have an intellectual experience with it, right? It was very much in the body, and it was very much in the soul. And so it was hard for me to actually figure out what was going on and heal that. So it kind of asked and required me to drop below the level of the intellect and to kind of drop into my heart and into my body, into my spirit, to kind of move through that. Interesting. A lot of support in doing that from kind of different different teachers and practitioners.
You mentioned that you got to work with Byron Katie when you were young, which is super cool. Yeah. He was one of them. I would love to interview her. I keep saying that, and then I don't follow up. So we'll see what we could do on that.
Yeah, absolutely. She's so wonderful. She's so wonderful. Yeah. And her work is great. So there was kind of all this pain that I experienced when I was younger, and I had this desire to kind of get out of that pain, right? And so and then I kind of found the work of Paul Farini, and his work really transformed my life, and he became my mentor for about 10 years. And so moving through all of this, that was really the main energetic focus of my life, was really, how do I become out of pain? How do I become the best version of myself, right? How do I really step into my potential? At the same time, as I started to heal, I noticed I had a passion for business. And so I started kind of pursuing the entrepreneurial route. I started a couple of businesses, one was a success, one was a failure. It was kind of, I learned a lot from both. And then I found that as I started moving to the business world, I just found myself in a leadership role all of a sudden. I was, a marketing director or head of marketing, and I had, 20 salespeople that I was managing. And all of a sudden I had to learn quickly how to be a leader. But what I realized, my training in learning how to become a better version of myself was better training for leadership than anything that I knew about business at that point. So what I noticed is that the things that I felt were making me a confident, effective leader were exactly the same things that were helping me have a better relationship with myself, which were helping me how to manage my own anxiety, my own fear. And it wasn't as much from the intellectual business knowledge that I had. And so then something started to kind of click for me, right? And so I started, as I moved into the consulting space and in the speaking space, I noticed that, business leadership really is really at its core a way of being. It's an essence. It's almost like a relational skill. It's not as much about business knowledge as so I thought that was a very interesting realization. And so that's kind of how I got into this and where I'm kind of at with it now.
Super cool. I use this model when I work with organizations. The top of the circle is task or getting things done. And everybody talks about, every leader I've ever done executive coaching says to me, I don't understand. This is not rocket science. You know what to do. Why wouldn't you do it? You know that you're going to get paid, or you're going to get, why is it so difficult to get people to do the task? And my answer is the same all the time, is the task is supported by the bottom of the circle, which is relationship. And without relationship, you cannot get the work done. Yeah. So thank you for validating that, for sure. And I find that fascinating too, that your best training for business leadership is all of the experiences that you've gone through to learn how to get out of your own physical, emotional, energetic pain, which is really interesting because it's not something that you necessarily think about when you think about business leadership, right? You think about business leadership, you rotate through the organization, usually you come out of finance, or usually come out of sales and marketing or operations, and then you move up and you go to classes, right? Or you have a role model that tells you what not to do. You don't want to lead like that, or how you do want to lead. Instead of self-mastery, is what you're saying is the most important learning ground for business leadership. Did I get that? Is that was exactly?
I think that's right on. Absolutely. And what we, and the work that I've kind of been doing now is really this realization. And now we've really been kind of, hanging our hat on this because we've seen it actually work, and we've seen it in action, which is that self-mastery is the foundation for leadership. And especially in today's world, right? And especially, I think you brought up a really great point too, which is like, what is, the question of like, well, what is leadership? People think that it's that you rise to a certain rank, you get there, and then that's it, right? But so, I guess for me, leadership is not a role. It's not a title. It's a way of being, because, we've also seen leadership traits come out of people who are not in quote unquote leadership roles within the organization, right? Someone is doing their job. They're kind of in their power. They're inspiring, they're empowering their teams. And, it's like anyone who kind of is in a position where someone looks to you.
That's leadership.
It's leadership.
Yeah. Informal leadership is what the org consultants call it. But yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back and just coach you for 1 second, because I can't help it. That's when you said this last business was a failure. I don't believe that word. I don't even try to have that in my vocabulary, because it just feeds my critic. Did you learn something?
Yeah.
Then it's not a failure. So there is no such thing as failure. There's no such thing as a mistake. It's a missed take. And the only way that you can improve is through missed takes.
I so appreciate that. And what I say too is, when people ask me about the businesses, I always say, I think I learned more from the one that didn't, pan out, or however you want to say it, right? It was the biggest. I feel like I went to an MBA class, and
exactly. And just to extend that, if you see your last relationship as a failure in divorce or a breakup, that's bullshit talkie. That's a BS belief system that will keep you unhappy. So in your book of romance, every relationship is either one that you learn from or that you learn from, whether it lasts this long or this short. So again, I'm just standing on my point.
I appreciate that for sure. And, I use the word failure as kind of a way to acknowledge that, like, hey, this is kind of the experience that I went through, but I would never have changed any of that. I would never have changed any of that.
Good. So I don't want to hear that word. There's two words not in my vocabulary or in my mind dictionary. One is the F word, failure, and two is the P word, patience. There's no word like that. I do not have it. I do not want it. Because every time I ask for more patience or pray for it, last time I did that, I got teenagers. So anyways.
Got it.
Okay. So if you are a business leader right now and you have just tuned in, you are listening to and watching Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. And today's guest is Lee Cholodenko. How did I do?
You did great. Killed it.
Okay. And he is a new friend through a mutual friend. And he is a speaker and consultant on business leadership and leadership as self-mastery is actually the course that he uses to help leaders be the best versions of themselves. And that's what we're talking about today. So welcome to the show. Just reminding you, we are on KCAA, which is NBC News Radio, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and of course, my YouTube channel, where you free subscribe, get an alert, and you can tune in every weekday morning at 8. Thank you for making me the number one talk show at 8 a.m. these 11 years and 580 consecutive weeks. Now, Lee, going to the actual self-mastery, how would you define the key components of self-mastery? And I think this also applies to anyone. You don't have to be in a business leadership role. How do you define or attain self-mastery?
Great question. So I'll start with kind of what I think self-mastery really means, and then how we can kind of move into developing greater self-mastery. I believe that really the foundation of self-mastery is self-awareness. So the first piece is that we have to have some awareness of who we are. And also, I think that there's even different levels of self-awareness too. There's one level of self-awareness where we are aware of the greater things, like the big picture, right? Who we are, what our purpose is, what we're meant to be doing here. Not that there really isn't meant to be doing here, but we feel like we understand our passions. We also feel like there's a level of awareness on what our pain points are and what our challenges are, and some of the roadblocks that we are here to overcome as individuals. There's also the level of self-awareness where it's a little bit on more of a fine-tuned present moment level, right? So having the self-awareness of, okay, what's going on in my body right now? What's going on in my emotions? What's going on in my mind? Having an awareness of our state of being at any given moment, right? Because we are in that way, self-awareness becomes a way of developing a greater relationship with ourselves. It's actually a way of developing intimacy. It's a way of developing connection. And through that self-awareness, we really are able to then make empowered choices. Because if we're unaware of what our needs are, how we're really feeling, what's actually going on inside of us, right? And then we don't also then extend that to become aware of our reactivity and how we can kind of either lash out or shut down, just the ways that we react to challenges that come up in our lives, then it really becomes difficult for us to make choices that move us in a direction that's in alignment with our highest good and the highest good of everyone around us. So the first...
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say that's the first point really is self-awareness. So
okay, so let me put the moose on the table, which is my Canadian version of the elephant in the room. Okay. And thanks. I see more eyeballs rolling in. Thank you for the finger. We've got a couple more people giving us fingers, not that finger, but this finger. If you have any comments, please do put them in the chat, and I will put them up here so I know who's talking and who is. You feel free to ask Lee any questions as well. So when you say self-awareness, people go, well, I know I'm good. I know I am, I'm hot. I'm whatever. I'm aware of my, and for people who are not necessarily in the field of self-development, to say you are self-aware is almost a woo-woo, frou-frou hold hands and sing Kumbaya kind of a concept. So I want to just put that loose on the table and say, why is it important that you are self-aware? Why is it important that you understand what's moving through you?
Yeah, sure. And I can kind of share my take. But with my experience is that the human experience is so complex, and the human mind has so many layers to it, that often I'm only really aware of such a small component of what's really going on for me in any given moment. And that oftentimes that there are unconscious, subconscious beliefs that are running the show and that are running the program. And what happens is that they run the program, whether I'm aware of them or when I'm not aware of them, right? So subconsciously they are running programs. And so when I'm making choices, I may think in many ways that I am conscious and aware of all of the components that are going into me making that choice. But often that's not really the case. We have these operating systems, right? And all those operating systems are full of beliefs, dispositions, biases, and a lot of those are coming from our past experience, right? A lot of them come from our pain, challenges that we've experienced in our lives, but oftentimes they're just taken on, for some way through society, through our parents, authority figures, through, especially when we're young, we're sponges and we absorb all that stuff. So the question of, what is the value of becoming self-aware, at least in my opinion, is to start to become aware of the components of my own psyche that are actually driving the ship in my life, and that are inspiring to me to make choices, whether I'm aware of it or not.
Yes.
And so that becomes incredibly important. When we start realizing that that's the system that's working, then we say, okay, self-awareness is the consciousness activity of becoming aware of what's really going on under the hood. And then when we really get aware of what's going on under the hood, again, that awareness brings us into a place where we can then start to make conscious choices from a more deliberate place about where we want to move, where we want to go. And that's, I believe, where we start moving into our empowerment.
Absolutely. And I'll just operationalize that and give you an example. So the way that I grew up was, it was my BS, my belief system that became automatic is I have to make people happy to be loved. Okay. So if I didn't make you happy, then I was not worthy. Okay, so I had an automatic BS belief system that I had to constantly prove that I was lovable by performing and showing you what you wanted. And so that was in every relationship of my life. I can remember it's not, out of the home, personal relationship. I was constantly looking, do I make you happy? Are you happy with me? So relationships with dating, was constantly, I wasn't stopping to say, am I happy? I was saying, are you happy? When I went to work, I would have so much angst because no matter how many people told me you did a great job on the presentation, you did a great job leading this or whatever, I was always looking for the other shoe to drop and who was not going to be happy with me. And then I would go to them to try to make them happy. And it was a constant, I would seek out, 99 people would compliment me. I would seek out that one person who had an issue with me and then beat myself over the head and lose sleep and constantly formulate the words that I would use to finally win them over, finally get them. And I picked a man who could not love me, but I picked him because my automatic response, my automatic BS belief system, mental mindset paradigm was I had to prove myself. So why not pick someone that is impossible to get approval from, just like my mom was, to try to become worthy, to try. And there's so many of us, and thank you for the hearts on that. There's so many of us, 7 out of 10 of us who've had childhood trauma, who take that trauma, use that with BS belief systems to then move and groove in the world in so much angst and so much unhappiness. And so if you're a business leader with that kind of BS belief system, and you are never sure of how effective you are, please be cognizant of Lee's point of self-awareness. If you're holding that, good for you. If you can admit that you're holding that BS, then you're one step ahead, so you know what you're going to work on to release that.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And thank you for saying that, because, it's also such an amazing example of, right, when we become aware of some of these systems, like then all of a sudden we start to, things can shift. And something else that came up for me that's huge when you were just talking is, if we are doing this in the context of business for ourselves, right, as leaders, and we are working towards creating happiness, right, which I know is what your work is very much about, and creating towards self-fulfillment. It's like happy leaders and self-fulfilled leaders are better leaders. And so then we realize that really the happiness journey, the self-fulfillment journey, is not distinct and separate from the path towards creating leadership capacity and leadership mastery. No, it's the same. And that is a really interesting point. And that's not something that I think is really, kind of talked about. And I also completely relate with that also, by the way, with your story. For me, my operating system was around people pleasing, which was a kind of a cousin of that, right? It's like, I had to make sure that everyone thought I pleased them. And if I didn't please them, then my worth went down. And so, for me, the path has always been, how do I become more honest? How do I become more direct? How to become more clear in a very loving, conscientious, compassionate way, but not in a way that is intended to evoke pleasure or happiness or acceptance and validation from the other person. And sometimes that can be tough because it means saying hard truths.
Yeah, I know and this is a journey that is, you're never going to get it done and you're never going to get it wrong. Abraham Hicks, law of attraction. And I know that if we are aware, then we can be authentic in not the, I have a problem sometimes with that word. People use it like, I want to be authentic and therefore I can be brutally honest, or, right, I say whatever's on my mind. I don't think that's what we're talking about at all. When we are aware, we are like an observer of ourselves. So that's how I define self-awareness. You're actually outside watching what is going through your head. And the exercise that I use in 8 Ways to Happiness, my book that thank you very much, I just found out is being sold at Walmart now. So I'm really happy about that. It hit the #1 spot. So the book illustrates this tool that I use in my life balance coaching, which is, if you are self-aware, then you can see who's talking. So if you were talking about the critic, right? The thing that is the constructs that are negatively talking, I call that the critic. And if you are watching and aware of your mind, you can see the critic, and you are not the critic. You are balance-centered Lee. I am balance-centered Dr. Marissa. The critic I call Agnes. I actually put a name. Sorry, my critic is named Rose. So guess what my mom's name is? Rose, right? But the critic, I'm aware of the critic's voices saying, you're not good enough. You're not all that. You didn't, if people really knew you, they wouldn't like you. That's the critic. The other one that not everyone has, but you and I do, I call her Penelope, the people pleaser. And I know when Penelope is awake and acting in the driver's seat of my life car, when I hear her say, but you didn't, how are they feeling? Oh, she just walked by you with a frown. Did you say something to her to piss her off? You better go to her and apologize. That's Penelope, the people pleaser, right?
I think I've met Penelope.
Yeah. So that's self-awareness. So hopefully we've dissected that enough so you understand what it is, and now you can practice. And if you I'll give a book away today. So my Asian Oprah giveaway is an audio copy of 8 Ways to Happiness. Go to drmarissa.life and put in the subject line Asian Oprah giveaway 8. And then I'll know that you heard this show to get that free audiobook. But the exercise is so valuable to be self-aware.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, that's a great tool. I'm excited for anyone who gets to have
that.
I recommend doing that for sure. Yeah, and that we were talking about practices, right, for developing self-awareness. And I think that's actually a really great point, because it's also like the question is like, well, how do we develop greater self-awareness, right? And for me, one of the ways that there's many different practices, I believe, and one of them for me that has really worked is meditation. And I have an interesting relationship with meditation. I am a meditation instructor. I've taught meditation classes. I use it in my own practice every single day for 10, 15 years. But I also have an interesting relationship with it because I also believe that meditation is kind of a state of being that we can actually kind of tune into really at any given moment. And for me, meditation is not sitting down, eyes closed with your, fingers touching. It's, that is what we can do in the beginning, or really at any start of the process, not just in the beginning, but to cultivate the practice. But really for me, meditation is probably the best definition for me of meditation is taking a moment to consciously become aware of what's going on inside of you. So for me, it's whether we're sitting down, closing our eyes, whatever it is, to really tune in and say, okay, what is it that's actually happening inside of me? And, for me, I look at it on 3 levels. I look at it on the physical body. So what's happening in my physical body right now? Am I having pain? Am I having discomfort? Am I having, feeling of looseness and limberness? What's going on in the physical body? Just to become aware of it. 2, what's going on in the emotional body, right? Like what is happening in my emotional body right now? What feelings are coming up? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling, frustrated, whatever? And then on the mental level, right? What thoughts are coming up? Is the mind racing? Just becoming aware of the state of the mind. And then with all of it, practicing just letting it be okay. Just allowing it to be okay, knowing that there's nothing for me to fix. Can I look without trying to fix? And that is a huge, big deal. If I can look at what's going on, become aware of sadness, feel it, not feel like I have to fix it and let it move through me is, now it's like, I love how you said it before, we're the observer, right? We're the witness. For me, that's the practice of cultivating witness consciousness, and so, I think all these different tools, there's so many different tools that help us actually get there. But really a lot of it can be an actual practice. And a lot of it can just be like, hey, let me just take a couple moments in silence and just check in with myself, whether I'm at my desk, whether I'm even at a meeting, what's going on in my body right now. And just cultivating that awareness over time leads to awareness, I believe, of kind of deeper components of the psyche.
Mm-hmm. That's such an important point because we're just such a society of problem solvers and thinkers and analyzers. And when we do that, we just exhaust ourselves in the mind and we're not in touch. It's no wonder we have healthcare issues. The number one diagnosis at doctors, 85% of every diagnosis is stress. And if we don't get a handle on that, and stress is when you wake up screaming and then realize you haven't been asleep. If we're not cognizant of what's going in our heads and we're just constantly running, that's what we're going to end up doing is just stress ourselves out. And that's a great practice. I do it first thing in the morning. I also get to teach that. And then I check in and I use the breath. The breath for me, that 3 breath technology, it just in through the nose, releasing, soft shoulder, soft elbow, soft knees, anchors my physical, another deep breath in, and then releasing all the stories and the drama. It ignites the mind. And then the 3rd breath, connecting with me through chi, eternal energy. It activates my spirit and my soul. And that allows me, I try to do that at the top of the hour. And that's my practice to anchor myself into present-centered awareness. But I love what you said about not reacting. I think that one of the most difficult things when I work with leaders on meditation is their minds are so active, and that is the unconscious level of it's just idea, fix. And meditation gives your brain a break, which we desperately need. But so I have many leaders who just can't because they're sitting still and all they're doing is thinking, I got to do this. And oh my God, I forgot about this. And I need the secretary to do that. And I need all of these, what about that team? And so my sell point is it possible that the solution to all of this is actually coming from another place that you can plug into versus scramble to make happen? Do you want to come to that from that place of inspired creative thought, or from the guy that's rolling the ball up the hill? What's his name? Rodin, right? Rodin. Do you want that? Or do you want like Einstein light bulb? And they all say Einstein, right? So that's my sell point on meditation, is that that's the practice to draw in or allow for that inspiration.
That is so awesome. I love that analogy and love that example. And you bring up, I think, a really amazing, huge, big point, which is like, we're not just talking about doing all these practices for the sake of, managing reactivity and doing all these other things. No, it's that when we actually have tuned in to that part of us that's below the mind, that is actually kind of connected to our center, right? And be able to come even more present. We really are tuned in with the full power of our creative energy as creators, as innovators, right? And then the ideas that come from that can be really spectacular. And so oftentimes we can say, even, right, these practices like meditation, self-mastery, these are also can be a precursor to being able to have sustained innovation. And I think there's something interesting about energy circuits, right? Where sometimes we can have these big spikes of energy and then we kind of drop, and we can almost kind of go like this when there's not a centeredness and groundedness in our own being and our own ability to stay present. And so sometimes I've seen this in business, and I'd be curious to know if you've seen this too, where all of a sudden the business innovates, they're soaring, but they can't sustain it because it's not in the kind of psyche to hold the energy like that. And so what happens is then all of a sudden our fears come in, are kicked in, and then all of a sudden we drop down to kind of this other kind of polar opposite. And in many ways, I think that's also just kind of life and the path, which just kind of happens energetically. But I think there's also something about cultivating this kind of, not necessarily that we want to stay high all the time, but this kind of neutrality that allows us to kind of weather the storms and challenges, but that also allows us to be able to kind of create and sustain innovation in a way that is long lasting, because we've been able to kind of hold that consciousness. And then it kind of shows us too that a lot of the results and what we see in the business is just a reflection of where we are in our own relationship with ourselves and our own consciousness. And so I know I use that word consciousness quite a bit, but I really believe that, it's kind of a woo-woo word, but really it's, I think it really is the foundation for understanding how to create the results in business that we want to create, and how to also understand how to inspire others to work with us towards that, towards the goal.
Absolutely. Inspired action, balance, purpose-driven organizations, purpose-driven leadership, innovation, thriving versus surviving. So all of those speak to, it's such a beautiful shift if we could all listen to Lee and begin to move away from the old construct of what is business. Business is not just, it is not what it used to be. Business, the empire making, make so much money, get to the top, be an executive, have a whole bunch of money, rule the world in that product or whatever, all of that. And then if I have some money, we're going to do some nice things for the nonprofit side of our business. That's been the traditional. If we can move and see that organizations are just an organized extension of a purposeful life as an individual, then we will all want to create a purpose-driven organization. And for me, all those organizations like Tom's, like all the ones who say, we're on this planet to create, first and foremost, to create. What do we want to create? Well, isn't it great if we create things that address all the opportunities to make a difference in a positive way? Can you imagine a world where every child is told, you, based on your experience in the pain, right? In that, through the pain comes power. Every child that goes through whatever it is, whatever hardship it is, that you are uniquely now ready and tooled and developed to create an organization that is purposeful in creating a product or a service to address that. So I bring to you one of my past guests, extreme example, Frederick, who lost his arms, were chopped off on a bus by Rwandan in the genocide. Okay. So what does he do? He is inspired, right? After he works through the pain and the anger and the sadness and the loss, to create an organization in Africa, in Rwanda, that develops all those who lost something physical in the genocide, and becomes this organization that is just, incredibly helping, right? So in that way, that organization has now become successful in the service that could only come about through the pain that they had. You are creating a self-mastery course based on your experiences in pain that you learned how to master, so that you could now offer this to business leaders who may have had similar experiences with both the early pain and the experiences in business missed takes, right? Wow. I get to write a book that isn't as a psychologist telling you how to be happy, but is a book that explains how I, through childhood abuse, picked a partner who was not good for me, but it was a natural subconscious thing for me to do, automatic pattern, and worked through all that to be to now work with people, 7 out of 10 of us who've had childhood trauma, that you can choose happiness too. So this whole, like you're saying, purpose-driven organization, self-mastery in leadership is all a shift in why we're here in organizations.
So well said. Absolutely. 100%. And the way that we find our purpose is also, I think, by what you were saying too, it's also a look within. It's like, what matters to me? What have I overcome that I can now offer as a gift to someone else? And what Paul Ferrini would almost call this the house of healing. It's how do I show up in an environment where people are receiving or are going through the same pain as me? How can I offer my gifts and up level people who've been through that same challenge as me, using my talents and using my gifts? It's a powerful
Absolutely. How do we find you? We're at the end of the show. Of course, I knew we would run out of time, but yep. How do we find you? Anybody that wants to work with Lee?
Great. So if for any leaders that are interested in actually bringing their leaders through a process to better understand themselves and really up-leveling their leadership, in the Kollner Academy at the Kollner Group, we have the basics of self-mastery, and that's a program that we've done. We've done it with Pepperdine Graduate School of Business. We've done it with a bunch of organizations, and it's been pretty wonderful. So we're offering that to a wider group now. So they can find us at kollnergroup.com, or for the academy, kollnergroup.com/academy. And then also you can find me at leecholodenko.com.
Awesome. You see it there on the screen. You can screenshot that and Google it and find him. Thank you so much, Lee, for being a fabulous guest today, allowing me to talk about one of my favorite topics. And this is Dr. Marissa reporting live from my living room. I know that you know this. It's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. Tomorrow, tune in for Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and Sam Works. Now go and have the best day ever. We'll see you tomorrow.